This is Franco Tenelli's Vocal Terms Dictionary. Today's subject is falsetto. Before defining it, let's listen to what great singers think about falsetto. Great tenor Nikolai Gedda was asked by Jerome Hines, "What do head voice and chest voice mean to you?" Head voice to me means the falsetto. That is the tone that is absolutely not supported. I have learned to sing a very high mezza voce, and I always supported it. I can't sing falsetto anymore. The following question was, what is the difference between an unsupported falsetto for a tenor and supported pianissimo? Jerome Hines asked. Falsetto, it's very high-pitched, but a tone I cannot do anything with. Pianissimo, I support it and I can make a crescendo on it. So as you see from the statement, Nikolai Gedda denies using falsetto, or at least denies using falsetto in his later years. When another great tenor, Jussi Björling, was asked how he mastered his falsetto, he denied it totally. He said, "I never use falsetto." Prominent vocal scientist and metropolitan laryngologist who treated Jussi Björling, he denied that statement, saying that of course Jussi Björling had falsetto. Is that true that even great singers do not understand their own voices? Or is it just a lack of universal definition of the vocal terms? Old Italian school master Pietro Tosi uses falsetto in the sense of a head voice. He also points out that if the mix of these two registers is not perfect, voice will never achieve a great beauty. Joining these two registers were known to tenors before the beginning of the 19th century. Great professor and great singer Alexis Garaudet talks about this as the mixed voice. Famous teacher Heinrich Ferdinand Meilenstein, in his Système de la grande méthode de chant de Bernacchi de Bologne, gives valuable advice to tenors. Tenor should be mixing two registers, chest and head, on E, F, and G. It's very important to achieve in a head voice the same roundness and the timbre that is equal to the chest voice. One can see the hints of one-timbral singing in the work of Meilenstein. Famous tenor and teacher Gilbert Louis Dupré, the founder of so-called covering technique, doesn't talk much about head voice at all. Instead, he proposes extension of the chest voice. Therefore, historically, he is the first singer and a teacher who understood voice as one. Famous Manuel Garcia the Son, in his full treatise about the vocal art, gives his own understanding of the voice registers. He divides human voice into three registers: chest, falsetto, and head voice. If you read his treatise, you will understand that by falsetto he actually means head voice, and by head voice he means falsetto. Cannot be more confusing than that. Now we can clearly understand the point of Cornell MacNeil, great baritone, who was against reading and writing vocal books at all. Another Italian term, sulfiato, is understood differently depending on the school of singing. School of Rosati and Beniamino Gigli thinks of sulfiato as falsetto, a support on the breath without the diaphragm. Another great teacher and singer, Carlo Bergonzi, when mentioning sulfiato, means the full support with the diaphragm. So you see that vocal terms definition depend rather on the vocal school. So the student has to accept the definition of the teacher he's studying with. Of course, it can be very confusing if you switch teachers. There is a solution in this case. Student has to ask his teacher, without any hesitation, what he means by this or that term, and preferably show him in his own voice. I know that some teachers' reaction on that kind of question is like, "What a stupid question you ask me." But if teacher doesn't want clearly to define what he means by this or that term, or denies to show it, that becomes very confusing for a student. And I have great doubt of usefulness in that type of the method or teaching. By now, I hope you understand that we cannot come to universal understanding of the vocal terms because there is no universal understanding of the vocal terms among professional singers. In this case, I would like to give you a more scientific, more objective understanding of what falsetto means. First, we have to come to the point that there are two types of falsetto: chest falsetto, or crooning voice, and head falsetto. Chest falsetto, or let's call it chest voice, not in the meaning of the chiaroscuro voice, but as the separate register, is formed when vocal cords are not closing up fully. Here's an example of non-chiaroscuro chest voice falsetto. That technique is basically using low larynx position, like in most classical techniques, especially operatic techniques. But vocal cords are not closing up fully. Therefore, voice doesn't have any projection without the microphone. Now there is an example of the head falsetto. This type of a head falsetto is easier to sing with a raised larynx. First type of chest falsetto can be brought up to the chest voice, a full chiaroscuro voice, by strengthening the diaphragm. This transition can be quite smooth if you know the technique. This example shows how to turn chest falsetto into full chiaroscuro voice. The same trick can be used by increasing airflow in head falsetto and turning it into a head voice or head register. In both cases, increased airflow brings vocal cords to the full closure without any breaks in the voice. But here we talk about different registers caused by different positions of the larynx. One can bring chiaroscuro chest voice up to the higher register without breaks, using appoggio way of support. Because scuro always has a little bit chiaro in it, even in the chest falsetto, so-called crooning low voice. So, in other words, it is possible to use low position of the larynx and achieve high notes using appoggio technique. But when you use so-called head voice, or sometimes called reinforced falsetto, you're using high position of the larynx. Any voice contains only harmonics, which are higher than original tone, and in this case you can only get to the lower tone if you switch position of the larynx. That will cause obvious break in the voice. That was Franco Tenelli's Vocal Terms Dictionary, Falsetto. Subscribe not to miss upcoming video. I have confession to make.